The cargo ship screamed through the atmosphere like a falling star. Inside, Hyunwoo fought with the controls as alarms blared around him. His hands moved fast over the buttons, but nothing worked. The engine was dead. The navigation system showed only static. He was going to crash. "Come on," he whispered to his ship. "Just hold together a little longer." But the ship had given all it could. Hyunwoo had been flying cargo runs for 5 years, taking medical supplies to human colonies on the edge of space. He knew his ship well. This was the end. The ground rushed up to meet him. Hyunwoo pulled the emergency lever and felt the crash seats lock around him. The impact threw him forward so hard that his vision went black. When he woke up, everything hurt. His chest felt like someone had hit him with a hammer. His left leg was bent wrong and bleeding. The smell of smoke filled his nose. He looked around the broken cockpit and saw sparks flying from damaged wires. Hyunwoo tried to stand but fell back down with a cry of pain. His ribs were broken, maybe his leg too. He reached for his emergency kit and found the medical scanner. The small device beeped as it checked his body. The results made his stomach drop. Internal bleeding. Infection starting in his leg wound. Without proper treatment, he would die in 2 days. He activated his rescue beacon and hoped someone would hear it. Then he crawled out of the wreckage to see where he had crashed. The planet looked dead. Red dirt stretched in every direction under a pale yellow sky. Strange purple rocks stuck up from the ground like teeth. In the distance, he could see tall black towers that looked like machines. Smoke came from them in steady streams. Hyunwoo had never been to this world before, but he knew what those towers meant. This was a mining planet. Someone was digging valuable materials from the ground. He just hoped they were friendly. He tried to walk toward the towers, but only made it a few steps before his leg gave out. The pain was getting worse. He sat down next to a large purple rock and waited. Maybe the miners would find him. Maybe his rescue beacon would bring help. Maybe he would just die here alone. Hours passed. The yellow sun moved across the sky and the air grew cold. Hyunwoo's vision started to blur. The infection was spreading fast. He closed his eyes and tried to stay awake. That was when he heard the voices. They were not speaking any language he knew. The sounds were musical, like singing, but with meaning behind them. Hyunwoo opened his eyes and saw 2 figures walking toward him. They were not human. They walked on 2 legs like people, but their skin was pale blue and seemed to shine with its own light. They were thin and tall, with long arms that ended in 4-fingered hands. Their faces were gentle, with large silver eyes that looked kind. The 2 beings stopped when they saw him. They spoke to each other in their musical language. One pointed at his bleeding leg. The other pointed at the crashed ship. Hyunwoo tried to speak. "Help," he said. "Please help me." The 2 beings looked at each other again. The smaller one, who seemed young, stepped forward. It knelt beside Hyunwoo and examined his wounds. Its silver eyes were full of concern. The larger being spoke in sharp tones. It pointed at the black towers in the distance and shook its head. It seemed to be saying this was dangerous, but the young one would not listen. It put its hand on Hyunwoo's shoulder and spoke in a soft voice. Even though he could not understand the words, Hyunwoo felt comfort in them. The young being looked back at its companion and made a decision. It slipped its arms under Hyunwoo and lifted him easily. Despite looking thin, it was very strong. As they carried him away from the crash site, Hyunwoo saw more of these beings. They were hiding behind rocks and in small caves. They watched as the young one carried the human, and their faces showed fear. Some tried to stop them, speaking in urgent tones. But the young one kept walking. They brought him to a hidden entrance in the ground. It led to tunnels that went deep into the planet. The walls were smooth and covered in beautiful patterns that glowed with soft light. This was not a natural cave. Someone had built this place. The tunnels led to a large underground chamber. Dozens of the blue-skinned beings lived here. They had made homes in the walls and grew strange plants that gave off light. Children played in the open spaces while adults worked on various tasks. When they saw Hyunwoo, everyone stopped what they were doing. Some came closer to look at him. Others backed away in fear. An old being with skin that shone brighter than the others stepped forward. The old one spoke to the young being who had carried Hyunwoo. Its voice was stern and worried. The young one responded with passion, pointing at Hyunwoo's wounds. They were arguing about whether to help him. Other beings joined the discussion. Some agreed with the old one that this was too dangerous. Others supported the young one's choice to help. The argument grew louder. Finally, the young being knelt beside Hyunwoo and placed both hands on his chest. Its skin began to glow brighter. Hyunwoo felt warmth spreading through his body. The pain in his ribs started to fade. His breathing became easier. The other beings watched in silence. What the young one was doing took great effort. Sweat appeared on its blue skin. Its breathing became heavy. It was giving some of its own life energy to heal him. Slowly, Hyunwoo's broken ribs mended. The bleeding inside his body stopped. The infection in his leg began to clear up. He could feel his strength returning. When it was finished, the young being collapsed. Others rushed to help it. The healing had taken much from the brave creature that had saved his life. The old being looked down at Hyunwoo with a mixture of concern and resignation. It spoke to the others, and they carried both Hyunwoo and his rescuer to a quiet corner of the chamber. As Hyunwoo drifted off to sleep on a bed of soft plants, he heard his rescue beacon still beeping quietly in the distance. He hoped help would come soon. But he also worried about what would happen to these kind beings who had risked everything to save a stranger. He did not know that his simple rescue beacon would soon bring attention from forces across the galaxy. He did not know that this moment of kindness would change the fate of billions. He only knew that when he was dying and alone, someone had chosen to help him, and that meant everything. 3 weeks passed in the underground chambers. Hyunwoo learned that his rescuer was named Nari. She was young for her people, barely an adult. The older being who had argued against helping him was Elder Bomb, the leader of this small community. Hyunwoo's body healed quickly thanks to Nari's gift. But learning about his new friends broke his heart. These gentle people were called the Villani. They were slaves. Every morning, most of the adults left the underground home to work in the mines above. They dug for rare crystals that powered starships across the galaxy. Their masters were called Thalorians, and they were cruel beyond measure. Taimin, Nari's friend who had helped carry Hyunwoo to safety, showed him the scars on his back. Thalorian whips, he explained in broken galactic common, the trade language most species used. They beat us if we work too slow. They beat us if we work too fast. They beat us just because they can. The Villani had been slaves for 300 years. The Thalorians had conquered their world when Nari's great-grandmother was young. They destroyed the Villani cities and forced the survivors to live underground. They were not allowed to speak their own language in front of their masters. They could not practice their old customs. Their children learned only enough to work and obey. Why don't you fight back? Hyunwoo asked Elder Bomb one evening. You have powers. I saw Nari heal me. I see how you make the walls glow. You could hurt them. Elder Bomb's silver eyes grew sad. We are not fighters, he said. Our people believe in helping others, not harming them. Even our worst enemies. It is who we are. But they're killing you slowly, Hyunwoo said. How many of your people die in the mines each year? Too many, Elder Bomb admitted. But if we use our gifts for violence, we become like them. Then the Thalorians will have truly won. Hyunwoo could not understand this way of thinking. Humans had always fought when they were attacked. But he began to see the strength in the Villani approach. Despite centuries of cruelty, they had kept their kindness. They still helped each other. They still cared for strangers like him. Sunho, Nari's younger brother, was different from the others. He was angry. He had been born into slavery and had never known freedom. When he looked at Hyunwoo, his eyes were full of suspicion. Why should we trust you? Sunho asked one day. All aliens bring us pain. The Thalorians are aliens. You are alien too. I'm not like them, Hyunwoo said. Prove it, Sunho challenged. Hyunwoo thought about this. How could he prove he was different? Then he remembered his cargo ship. It had been carrying medical supplies, but it also had tools and spare parts. I can teach you, he said. I can show you how to fix the mining equipment. Make it work better. Maybe that will help you. Sunho was interested despite himself. That night, Hyunwoo snuck up to the crash site with Sunho and Taemin. They salvaged what they could from the wreckage. Back in the underground chambers, Hyunwoo began teaching the young Villani about human technology. He showed them how to repair damaged mining tools. He taught them to make the equipment more efficient. The lessons helped in ways Hyunwoo had not expected. When the mining tools worked better, the Villani could meet their daily quotas more easily. This meant fewer beatings from the Thalorian overseers. It meant a little less suffering. Word of the improvements reached the surface. Overseer Krex, the Thalorian in charge of this mining operation, noticed that production had increased. He was suspicious. Slaves were not supposed to get better at their jobs without orders. Krex was a massive creature with gray skin like stone, and 4 arms that ended in claws. He wore armor covered in spikes and carried weapons that could kill with a single shot. All the Villani feared him. One morning, Krex came down into the mines for an inspection. This was unusual. He normally stayed in his tower and let his guards handle the slaves. Hyunwoo was hidden in the deep tunnels, but he could hear the commotion above. Krex was angry about something. He was shouting at the Villani workers in the harsh Thalorian language. Nari came running into the chamber. "He found something," she said, her voice full of fear. "One of the tools you helped us fix. He knows it's not our work." Through the tunnel system, they could hear Krex interrogating the workers. The sound of his voice grew louder and closer. He was following the tunnel system down toward their hidden home. "He'll kill us all," Elder Bomb said quietly. "This is what I feared would happen." Sunho grabbed one of the human tools. "Then we fight," he said. "No," Nari said firmly. "Violence is not our way. Then what do we do?" Tamian asked. Hyunwoo made a decision that surprised everyone. "I'll go to him," he said. "I'll tell him I've been working alone, that you had nothing to do with it." "He'll kill you," Nari said. "Maybe," Hyunwoo agreed. "But he'll definitely kill all of you if he finds this place. At least this way you have a chance." Before anyone could stop him, Hyunwoo walked out of the chamber and up through the tunnels. He found Krex in the main mining area, holding a modified tool in one of his 4 hands. Several Villani workers knelt before him, their heads down in terror. "I did that," Hyunwoo said loudly. Krex turned to look at him. The Thalorian's eyes were black as space and just as cold. "Human," he said in Galactic Common. "What are you doing on my world?" "My ship crashed," Hyunwoo said. "I've been hiding in the tunnels." "I fixed some of your equipment. Why?" Krex demanded. "To stay alive," Hyunwoo lied. "I thought if I made myself useful, you might let me live until rescue comes." Krex studied him for a long moment. Then he raised his weapon. "Humans are not welcome here. Neither are slaves who help them." But before Krex could fire, something unexpected happened. Minji, Nari's mother, stepped forward from among the kneeling workers. Her skin began to glow with bright light. "Leave the human alone," she said in clear Galactic Common. Krex laughed. "A slave gives me orders?" Minji's glow grew brighter. She opened her mouth and released a sound like music, but louder and more powerful than anything Hyunwoo had ever heard. The harmonic vibration hit Krex's weapon and shattered it into pieces. The silence that followed was deafening. For 300 years, no Villani had raised their hand against a Thalorian. The age of peaceful submission was over. Krex roared in fury and reached for another weapon. But alarms began blaring from the surface. Something was happening above ground. Through the mine shafts, they could hear the sound of engines. Ships were landing outside. The rescue beacon in Hyunwoo's crashed ship had finally been answered. Krex looked between the human and the rebellious slave. His black eyes promised terrible revenge. "This is not over," he snarled, then ran toward the surface to deal with the new threat. Minji collapsed, exhausted from using her powers for violence for the first time in her life. Nari and the others rushed to help her. "I'm sorry," Minji whispered to her daughter. "I know it was wrong to hurt another being, but I could not let them kill him. Not after what he's done for us." Hyunwoo knelt beside the brave woman who had saved his life. Above them, the sounds of battle had begun. Human voices called out orders. Weapons fired. His people had come for him, but now he faced a terrible choice. He could leave with the rescue ship and return to safety, or he could stay and help his new friends face the wrath of the Thalorian Empire. Looking into Nari's silver eyes, he realized there was no choice at all. These people had risked everything for him. Now it was his turn to risk everything for them. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened someone a human cared about. The human ship that landed was called the Taeguk. Captain Young-soo had come expecting a simple rescue mission. He thought he would pick up one crashed pilot and leave. Instead, he found a slave world and a war about to begin. Hyunwoo met the rescue team at the mine entrance. Behind him came dozens of Villani workers blinking in the surface light they rarely saw. Captain Young-soo was a veteran of many battles, but even he was shocked by what he saw. The Villani were thin from poor food. Their blue skin was marked with scars from Thalorian whips. Many were missing fingers or hands from mining accidents. The children who peeked out from behind their parents had never known anything but fear. "Dear God," whispered Do-yeon, the ship's chief engineer. "What have they done to these people?" Overseer Krex stood with 20 Thalorian guards between the humans and the landing area. His armor gleamed in the yellow sunlight. New weapons hung from his belt. "You will take your human and leave," he commanded. The slaves belonged to the Empire. Captain Youngsu was a man who had seen many terrible things in his military career. But something about the way the Villani children hid behind their parents made his anger burn hot. "We're not leaving anyone behind," he said. "Then you will all die here," Krex replied. The battle began when Krex raised his weapon toward Nari. Hyunwoo threw himself in front of her, and Captain Youngsu opened fire. The peaceful mining world erupted into violence, but this was not a normal battle. Hyunwoo had spent 3 weeks learning to speak with the Villani in their musical language. He had studied their abilities and their deep connection to the crystalline structures of their planet. "Tell them to sing together," Hyunwoo shouted to Nari over the sound of weapons fire. "All of them at once. Use the harmonic resonance," Nari understood immediately. She called out to her people in their native tongue. Elder Bomb took up the call. One by one, every Villani in the mining complex began to sing. The sound was beautiful beyond description. Hundreds of voices joined in perfect harmony. But it was more than music. The Villani were using their natural abilities to speak to the planet itself. Deep underground, massive crystal formations began to respond. The harmonic vibrations traveled through the rock and metal of the mining equipment. Conveyor belts started moving on their own. Drilling machines spun their bits without operators. The entire mining complex came alive. Duyun watched in amazement as the crystalline structures in the mine walls began to glow brighter. "They're turning the whole place into a weapon," she said. Elder Bomb stood at the center of the singing Villani. His voice was the strongest, guiding the others. Under his direction, the harmonic resonance caused a controlled earthquake. The ground shook just enough to knock the Thalorian guards off their feet, but the Villani remained standing. The Thalorian weapons began to malfunction. Their energy cells, which contained crystals similar to those the Villani controlled, started to overload. Guns exploded in their users' hands. Vehicle engines died as their power sources failed. Captain Youngsu had never seen anything like it. "Form up on the Villani," he ordered his Marines. "Protect them while they work." Taemin ran to join the human soldiers. He had no weapon except his mining tools, but he fought beside them anyway. When a Thalorian guard tried to break through their line, Taemin threw himself at the enemy. He used his bare hands to protect the human who had taught him about fixing machines. The young Villani was brave, but the Thalorian was much stronger. The guard's claws raked across Taemin's chest, leaving deep wounds. Taemin fell to the ground, bleeding badly. "No," Nari cried out. She broke from the singing group and ran to her friend. Taemin looked up at her with fading eyes. "Tell the human," he whispered. "Tell him we remember his kindness." Then Taemin did something that no Villani had ever done before. He poured all of his remaining life energy into one final harmonic burst. The sound created a barrier of crystalline light around the human Marines, protecting them from enemy fire. The barrier held long enough for Captain Youngsu's team to push back the Thalorian guards. But when it faded, Taemin was gone. He had given his life to save the humans who had come to help his people. The human Marines stood in shocked silence. They had seen many brave acts in their military careers, but none had ever moved them like this. An alien they had just met had died to protect them. "We don't leave friends behind," Captain Youngsu said quietly. "Ever." The remaining Thalorian guards were retreating to their ships. Overseer Krex roared orders at them, but his authority was broken. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Villani had fought back and won, but victory came with a price. As the Thalorian ships lifted off, Krex sent a message on an open frequency. Every human in the system could hear his words. "You have made a grave mistake, humans." His voice crackled over the radio. "The Thalorian Empire does not forgive. The Third Fleet will come for this world. We will destroy every human ship and enslave every human survivor, and we will make the Villani watch as we do it." Captain Youngsu looked at his small crew. The Teguk was a single patrol ship with light weapons. The Thalorian Third Fleet was 200 warships strong. When they arrived, it would be a massacre. "Sir," Doyun said quietly, "we should evacuate immediately. Take as many Villani as we can and run." "How many can we carry?" the captain asked. "Maybe 100. 150 if we pack them in tight." Yunwoo looked at the thousands of Villani gathering around them, families holding each other, Children who had just seen their first taste of freedom. Elder Baum standing with dignity despite his age and frailty. "We can't take them all," Captain Young-Soo said. It was the hardest thing he had ever had to say. Elder Baum approached them. His silver eyes held no anger, only sadness. "We understand," he said in his careful galactic common. "You have done more for us than anyone in 300 years. Save who you can. We will face what comes." Nari knelt beside Taemin's body. Her friend had died protecting strangers because it was the right thing to do. The human named Hyunwoo had taught them about technology and friendship. Captain Young-Soo had risked his ship to help people he had never met. She stood up and walked to the human captain. "We will not run," she said. "This is our world. If we must die, we will die free." Sunho joined his sister. Despite his youth and anger, his voice was steady. "The crystals of this world are ours. The songs are ours. If the Thalorians want to fight us here, they will learn what the Villani can do when we are not afraid." Captain Young-Soo looked around at the Villani faces. These gentle people were choosing to fight rather than abandon their home. They were asking him to stand with them against impossible odds. As a military officer, he knew the smart thing was to retreat. Report what had happened and let the politicians decide what to do. But as a human being who had watched Taemin die for his Marines, he knew there was only one choice. "Doyon," he said to his engineer, "send a message to Earth, tell them what happened here. Tell them about Taemin. Tell them the Villani need our help. Sir, even if Earth sends the entire fleet, they won't get here for weeks." Captain Young-Soo looked up at the sky where the Thalorian ships had disappeared. Soon that same sky would be filled with enemy warships. But maybe, just maybe, help would come. "Then we hold until they arrive," he said. Hyunwoo stepped forward. "Captain, my rescue beacon is still transmitting. It's been sending out a distress signal for weeks. Every human ship in 10 systems knows there's someone in trouble here." "What are you saying?" Hyunwoo smiled. "I'm saying humans don't just abandon people who help them. Check your sensors." Captain Young-Soo looked at his scanner display. His eyes widened. Impossible. Dozens of signals were appearing at the edge of the system. Not military ships, but civilian vessels. Cargo haulers, mining ships, passenger liners, even old warships from the colonial defense forces. They were coming from every human world within range. The message of what happened on this mining world was spreading. And humanity was responding the only way it knew how. They were coming to fight. The news traveled faster than any ship. Across human space, people heard the story of Hyunwoo's rescue and Taemin's sacrifice. The report spread through every communication network, every social media platform, every news service. On Earth, Dr. So Young was a scientist who studied alien life forms. She had never met a Villani, but when she read about their gentle nature and healing abilities, she could not stay silent. She published a research paper about Villani empathy that was downloaded millions of times in the first hour. "These are not just aliens," she wrote. "These are people who chose to save a human stranger, knowing it might cost them their lives. Now we must choose what kind of species we want to be." Admiral Jae-sung commanded the human defense fleet from his headquarters on Luna. When the reports reached him, he called an emergency meeting with Earth's government. The politicians were worried about starting a war with the Thalorian Empire. "We're not ready for interstellar conflict," the Secretary of Defense argued. "The Thalorians have been conquering worlds for 1,000 years. We've barely been in space for 200. So we just abandon the Villani?" Admiral Jae-sung asked. "We negotiate. We offer to trade something for their freedom. The Thalorians don't negotiate with slaves. They own them." But even as the politicians debated, something extraordinary was happening across human space. Captain Kiwan was a retired war hero who had fought in the colonial conflicts. When he heard about Taemin's sacrifice, he took his old ship out of mothballs and headed for Villani space. "Orders are for people who follow," he broadcast on all frequencies. "I follow my conscience." Hundreds of other ships joined him. Merchant vessels carrying cargo, passenger liners full of volunteers, mining ships with their crews still covered in asteroid dust. They came from every human world, every human station, every corner of human space. The woman who spoke for them all was named Eunji. She had escaped from Thalorian slavery 10 years ago when human raiders attacked her prison ship. Now she broadcast from the bridge of a converted freighter. The Villani showed kindness to one human. Her voice carried across the galaxy. Now billions stand by their side. This is not about politics or territory. This is about who we are. On the mining world, the Villani worked to prepare for the coming battle. Elderbaum led them in expanding the crystalline network they had used to defeat Overseer Krex. But this time, they needed something much more powerful. Donghyun was an old Vellani scientist who remembered the time before the Thalorians came. He had spent decades studying the ancient crystal formations deep in their planet's core. Now he shared knowledge that his people had kept hidden for 3 centuries. The core crystal can be awakened, he told the gathering of humans and Vellani. It will amplify our harmonic abilities across the entire star system. But the power required? He paused, his silver eyes sad. Many of us will not survive the effort. Nari stepped forward without hesitation. I will be the primary conduit, she said. No, Hyunwoo said immediately. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Elderbaum said gently. The core crystal requires a pure harmonic resonance. Nari has the strongest connection to the planet's crystals. She is our only hope. Hyunwoo felt his heart breaking. Nari had saved his life with her healing powers. She had become like a sister to him over the past weeks. The thought of losing her was unbearable. What if we don't use it as a weapon? He asked desperately. What if we use it as a beacon instead? Do-yeon, who had been studying the Vellani technology, looked up from her scanners. What do you mean? The Vellani can project their harmonic resonance through crystals. What if instead of destroying the Thalorian fleet, we broadcast the story of what happened here, send it to every world in the galaxy? Donghyun considered this carefully. The power required would be immense. But yes, it could work. Every crystalline structure on every world would carry our message. What good would that do? Sunho asked. Woo Jin, Captain Youngsu's communications officer, was monitoring Thalorian frequencies. Sir, I'm picking up reports from across their empire. Slave revolts on 12 different worlds. The story of the Vellani resistance is inspiring other species. Captain Youngsu studied the tactical display. More human ships were arriving every hour, but they were still vastly outnumbered. The Thalorian Third Fleet would arrive in less than 6 hours. If we can broadcast the Vellani story to every world simultaneously, he said slowly, we might start a galaxy-wide revolution. Every species the Thalorians have enslaved would rise up at once. It's still a desperate plan, Do-yeon pointed out. Even if it works, we have to survive long enough to activate it. Hyunwoo looked at the growing fleet of human ships on the scanner. We will, he said with certainty. Humans don't abandon their friends. As if to prove his point, a new voice came over the communication system. Fleet Admiral In-soo was broadcasting from the bridge of the massive dreadnought Seoul. This is the Human Defense Fleet. His voice was calm and professional. All civilian vessels withdraw to safe distance. We'll take it from here. Captain Youngsu couldn't believe what he was seeing. The entire human defense fleet was dropping out of hyperspace around the planet. Hundreds of warships in perfect formation. Admiral, what are your orders from Earth? He asked. There was a pause before Admiral In-soo replied. My orders are to protect human interests. Right now, human interests include some very brave aliens who risked everything to save one of our people. The truth was more complex. The politicians on Earth had ordered the fleet to stay away from Thalorian space. But when the story of Tai Min's sacrifice reached the military personnel, something unprecedented happened. The entire fleet had voted to disobey orders. From the newest recruit to the most senior admiral, they had made the same choice. They would not abandon people who had shown such courage and kindness. On the planet's surface, the Vellani began the process of awakening the core crystal. Nari took her position at the center of a massive crystalline chamber deep underground. Hundreds of other Vellani surrounded her, ready to add their voices to the harmonic resonance. Hyunwoo stood beside her as the ceremony began. I'm sorry I brought this war to your people, he said. Nari smiled, her silver eyes bright with determination. You brought us hope, she said. For 300 years, we believed we would die as slaves. Now we know we will die as free people. You're not going to die, Hyunwoo said firmly. None of us are. We're going to win this. The Vellani began to sing. Their voices joined together in perfect harmony, growing stronger with each passing moment. The crystals around them began to glow, then shine, then blaze with light so bright it could be seen from space. Above them, the human fleet took defensive positions around the planet. Civilian ships hung back while military vessels formed battle lines. They were as ready as they could be. On the far edge of the system, hyperspace tears began to open. One by one, massive Thalorian warships emerged from the void. The Third Fleet had arrived. 200 enemy ships against the largest human fleet ever assembled. It was still not enough. The Thalorians had better weapons, stronger shields, more experience in space combat. But they had never faced anything like what was coming. As the core crystal reached full resonance, its harmonic beacon began to broadcast across the galaxy. Every world with crystalline formations would hear the story of the Vallani. Every enslaved species would learn that freedom was possible. The final battle was about to begin. And win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Insu opened communications to the entire combined fleet. His voice was steady as he gave the order that would echo through history. All ships engage the enemy. Today we fight not just for humanity, but for every being who believes in freedom. Make them remember this day. The space around the mining world erupted into the largest battle the galaxy had ever seen. The battle began with the fury of 1,000 storms. Thalorian warships, each one the size of a city, opened fire with weapons that could crack moons. Human ships, smaller but faster, darted between the enemy formations like angry insects. Admiral Insu commanded the human fleet from the dreadnought Sol. He had fought in many battles, but never anything like this. The Thalorians had superior firepower and stronger shields. In a normal fight, they would have won easily, but this was not a normal fight. Captain Kiwan, the old war hero, flew his converted freighter straight at a Thalorian cruiser. For Taman, he shouted over the communication channels as he rammed his ship into the enemy vessel. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire, but the cruiser was destroyed. All across the battlefield, civilian ships followed his example. Merchant vessels loaded with explosives crashed into Thalorian warships. Mining ships used their asteroid-moving equipment to grab enemy fighters and crush them. Passenger liners emptied their cargo holds and filled them with missiles. The Thalorians had expected to fight soldiers. Instead, they faced ordinary people who had chosen to become heroes. On the planet's surface, the core crystal continued to grow brighter. Nari stood at its center, her blue skin glowing with the same light. Around her, hundreds of Vallani added their voices to the harmonic resonance that was spreading across the galaxy. Hyunwoo monitored the crystal's power levels from a control station Elderbaum had taught him to use. "It's working," he reported to Captain Youngsu. "The signal is reaching crystal formations on over 1,000 worlds." "How long until full broadcast?" the captain asked. 10 minutes, Hyunwoo replied. "But I don't know if Nari can hold the connection that long. She's already given so much of her life energy." In space, the human fleet was taking heavy losses. The Thalorian ships were just too powerful. Admiral Insu watched as ship after ship fell to enemy fire. Good people dying for strangers they had never met. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're getting signals from across Thalorian space. Slave revolts on 47 worlds and counting." Even as they fought, the harmonic beacon was having its effect. On planets throughout the Thalorian Empire, enslaved species were hearing the story of Vallani courage and human loyalty. They were rising up against their oppressors. Commander Vex of the Thalorian Third Fleet realized what was happening. The beacon was not just a weapon against his ships, it was a weapon against the entire empire. If he could not stop it, the Thalorian civilization would collapse within days. "All ships target the planet," he ordered. "Destroy the source of that signal." The massive Thalorian dreadnought turned its main guns toward the mining world. Each weapon was powerful enough to crack the planet's crust. If they fired, everyone on the surface would die, but they never got the chance. A new fleet dropped out of hyperspace behind the Thalorian formation. Not human ships this time, but vessels from a dozen different species. The Corvani had brought their crystal-powered fighters. The Elthari sent their bioships that could heal themselves. The Vash contributed their plasma cannons. Of them were former Thalorian slaves who had received the harmonic beacon and broken free of their chains. "This is Admiral Keth of the Free Corvani Fleet." A voice came over the communication channels. "We heard your message, humans. We stand with you and the Vallani against tyranny." The tide of battle turned in an instant. The Thalorians found themselves surrounded by angry former slaves who knew their weaknesses. Ships that had been designed to hunt and capture were now being hunted themselves. In the crystal chamber, Nari felt the strain of maintaining the harmonic connection. Her life energy was fading fast. But she also felt something else. The responses coming back through the crystal network. Hundreds of species across the galaxy were answering her call. "I can hear them," she whispered to Hyunwoo. "So many voices, all singing together." Elder Baum approached them, his ancient face full of wonder. "It is the Great Harmony," he said. "The dream our ancestors spoke of. All living beings united in song. The harmonic beacon reached its peak power. Every crystal formation in the galaxy resonated with the story of one human pilot who crashed on a mining world, and the aliens who chose to save him despite the risk. The story of Taimin's sacrifice. The story of humans who traveled across space to help strangers. On 1,000 worlds, slaves broke their chains. Prison ships were overwhelmed by their own captives. Thalorian governors found their palaces surrounded by angry crowds. The Thalorian Empire, which had ruled through fear for a millennium, crumbled in a single day. Commander Vex tried to maintain order among his fleet, but it was hopeless. His own crew began to question orders. Why were they fighting to preserve a system of slavery? Why were they killing people who only wanted to be free? One by one, Thalorian ships stopped firing. Some tried to flee. Others simply surrendered. The Great Third Fleet, which had never known defeat, scattered like leaves in a storm. In the crystal chamber, Nari collapsed. The effort of maintaining the harmonic beacon had drained almost all of her life force. Hyunwoo caught her as she fell. "Did it work?" she asked weakly. Hyunwoo looked at the displays showing signals from across the galaxy. Everywhere, the message of freedom was being heard. "It worked," he said. "You did it, Nari. You freed the galaxy." She smiled and closed her silver eyes. For a moment, Hyunwoo thought he had lost her, but then her breathing steadied. She would live, though it would take time for her to recover. Sun Ho ran into the chamber, his young face bright with excitement. "The Thalorians are retreating," he reported. "All of them. The human admiral says the war is over." Above them, the space around the mining world was filling with ships from dozens of species. The first meeting of what would become the Galactic Liberation Alliance was taking place in the orbit of a planet that had been a slave world just hours before. Admiral Insu met with leaders from across the galaxy. Former slaves, human civilians who had become heroes, military commanders from species that had just won their freedom. Together they began planning a new kind of government, one based on cooperation instead of conquest. "The Thalorians ruled through fear," Admiral Insu said. "We will lead through friendship." Captain Youngsu visited the crystal chamber where Nari was recovering. She was weak but alert, her silver eyes clear and bright. "What will you do now?" he asked her. "Rebuild," she said simply. "Learn to live as free people again. Help others do the same." Hyunwoo knelt beside her bed. "I have a proposal," he said. "Earth needs an ambassador to the Vellani, someone who understands your people and your culture. And the Vellani need an ambassador to the humans." Nari replied with a smile. "Someone who has seen what your people are capable of when they choose to help instead of harm." 5 years later, the galaxy was a very different place. The Galactic Liberation Alliance had grown to include over 300 species. Trade flowed freely between worlds. Former slave planets had become thriving centers of culture and learning. Hyunwoo served as the human ambassador to the Vellani homeworld, which had been restored to its people with the help of human terraforming technology. The planet was beautiful now, with crystal gardens that sang in the wind and cities that glowed with harmonic light. Nari had recovered her strength and more. She led the Vellani Council in the new Galactic Senate. Her people's gift for healing and harmony made them natural mediators in disputes between other species. Sun Ho had grown into a confident young leader. He worked with human engineers to develop new technologies that combined crystal harmony with human innovation. The devices they created could heal diseases, purify polluted worlds, and bring life to dead planets. But the most remarkable change was in the children. Human and Vellani children played together in the crystal gardens, learning each other's languages and customs. They grew up knowing that the galaxy was full of friends, not enemies. One day, Hyunwoo stood in the memorial garden dedicated to Taimin and all those who had died in the Liberation War. Nari joined him there, as she often did. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had chosen differently?" she asked. "If you had left us to face the Thalorians alone?" Hyunwoo considered this. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then I remember something my grandmother told me when I was young. She said that kindness is like a seed. You never know what will grow from it." Above them, ships from across the galaxy traveled peacefully between the stars. The flags they flew bore the symbol of the Liberation Alliance, a crystal surrounded by stars representing the harmony of all living beings. It had started with one act of kindness, Two young Villani choosing to save a crashed human pilot, even though it put their own lives at risk. That single decision had changed everything. The galaxy learned that day that freedom was not something you took by force. It was something you earned by showing others that a better way was possible. And sometimes all it took was one person willing to help a stranger in need. The age of tyranny was over. The age of friendship had begun, and in the crystal gardens of the Villani homeworld, children of a dozen species played together under alien suns, growing up in a universe where kindness had conquered fear, and where every being knew that somewhere among the stars, billions stood ready to help them if they ever needed it. The seed had grown into something beautiful beyond imagination.